Hi everyone, I'm Alex Rosenfeld, founder of Freshwater Investments, and this is Coffee with the T-Bird podcast. I sit down with fellow T-Birds who are making an impact in business, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Each episode features conversations that explore the pivotal moments, personal motivations, and lessons learned on their journeys. Whether you're a student, alum, or someone passionate about business and personal growth, you'll walk away with fresh ideas. This is a bit more than a podcast. It's a platform for connections, storytelling, and celebrating the global spirit of Thunderbird. This podcast is sponsored by Freshwater Investments. At Freshwater, we make it simple for you to invest in large apartment communities across the United States so you can earn passive income, grow your capital, and benefit from real estate tax breaks without owning or managing property yourself. Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Rosenfeld, founder of Freshwater Investments, and my guest today is Jim Groo, who's lived in 6 countries, worked in 50-plus markets, and somehow managed to play drums in multiple bands along the way. From launching Ray-Bans in post-communist Europe to building AI-driven marketing tech out of Switzerland, Jim's done it all. Today, we'll talk about how Jim went from a frustrated media planner to a global business builder. Jim's multicultural family includes a Czech wife, 2 kids, one born in Belgium and the other in Switzerland. Outside of work, you'll often find Jim enjoying the Swiss outdoors, hiking and skiing, riding a motorcycle through the Alps, or behind a camera, lens capturing the beauty of life's global perspectives. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Great. If you don't mind, let's start with something I came across on your LinkedIn feed, and one of the years you started with the theme, with the motto "Good Vibes Only." Can we just talk a little bit of how did it change your year? Or did it change, and what are you thinking for the next year, 2026?
This motto, "Good Vibes Only," it was interesting. I was skiing in Zermatt and having a great time, and just by happenstance came across this restaurant, and on the side of it said "Good Vibes Only," and I was like, this is definitely how we need to think about life and apply that to business. What I've found throughout my career is when you have good vibes, when you're surrounded by people who are positive, when you have that positive energy, it just really it makes everything easier and drives things better. So it's a motto that I found, saw it, said, this is it. And I try to live by that all the time.
I
really
love it.
Drives, yeah.
I love it. Thank you. So I think I'll start thinking about a motto for my 2026 too. It's about time.
Yeah.
getting close. Okay, let's. Can you take me to your childhood? Can you take me to your early beginnings? Let's talk about where did you grow up? Maybe talk about your parents, your family, and your upbringing.
I was born and raised in Connecticut without really much of an international exposure. Born and raised in the same town. I think we moved across town once when I was 10 years old. I did have a Austrian grandmother, so there is a bit of international trait, through the blood. And we called her Oma, so that was kind of my first real, I would say, exposure to anything international. And of course, growing up, you have the sound of music and this Austrian, Alps and so forth. That, in later life, I think that's probably some of the stuff that got me excited about going abroad. But yeah, no real international exposure up until that point.
Did she talk? Did your grandmother talk to you in English or?
Yeah, in English, and she never taught my mother to speak German, so they always talked about that. But no, she talked, and there's lots of stories because my grandfather was a fighter pilot in World War I and World War II, and they met in between the wars. So there's a lot of kind of fun stories that they used to tell.
That's great. Do you remember who was the major influence on you while you were growing up? Any mentors, any teachers you can recall?
That's tough. A lot of different people.
Or was your parents mostly?
Yeah, I think parents, friends. I always had a very strong friend network. So my friends and family were very strong. At school, it was usually the tough teachers that I really enjoyed the most. We had a teacher in high school called Mr. Looney, and he was just really tough. And he's like, rich Connecticut people, you got to think differently. And he really would push us. And he was a bit out there and very tough. But he had, and it really helped inspire me to do better and to look at things a different way.
That's great. Did you, while in high school, did you have any?
Yeah, my first job was frying chickens at the local village market at the supermarket. So I remember very well. I worked all through high school, and a good friend of mine, Paul, and I, we were very proud because we worked hard and saved up enough money to buy our own cars. And in that region, a lot of people, their 16th birthday would get a car. They have to drive their parents' car, and we were very proud to have put in the effort to stock shelves and do cashiers and fried chicken or whatever it was to make money and buy our first.
I bet you still remember the model of that car.
Yeah, it was an Audi 5000. He had a BMW 2002.
Awesome. What was it, stick shift?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. And then you went to school, to college in Syracuse, upstate New York.
Yep, went to upstate New York. I was studying advertising and communication at the Newhouse School up in Syracuse. And I would say when I went there, I've actually met some lifelong friends. And actually, my current business partner, we met at Syracuse. I was his RA, his resident advisor at the time. So there's some funny stories. Maybe we'll save that for a beer later. But the school didn't really feel home there. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but I did a semester abroad in 1989. And I would say this is the moment that really changed my life. I don't remember.
That was an interesting year.
Yeah.
1989.
Yeah, it was. And so I was a junior in junior at Syracuse. I studied abroad in London, and that was when the Berlin Wall came down. And up until that point, I really didn't know, that too much about international stuff, more around the Olympics. Russians are good in ice hockey and Romanians in gymnastics and so forth. But Eastern Europe was a big kind of like black hole for me. And so I became very intrigued by this whole new world that has just opened up.
Got it. And after Syracuse, you worked on, was it Madison Avenue? You were media planner, or?
Yeah, so after that moment, I changed focus from advertising into international business. And actually the first real internship I got was in the United Nations in Geneva. And that was pretty cool because we were working on this climate change conference, actually a predecessor to the conference in Rio in 1991 that was signed. So we were working on the kind of documents before that. So that was great. But because I, had a certain demographic, I didn't fit the profile and the quota. So I needed to go back and get a real job, and ended up back in New York. And worked on Madison Avenue for gray advertising. I was a media planner and hated it because it was too much data. Those days, it was still pretty good days for advertising. So lots of media parties, and it was a great way to experience New York as a media planner. People are always taking you to lunch and inviting you to media parties and so forth. And so this was a lot of fun. But you got to remember, this was before mobile phones and before Excel. So we were trying to crunch like GRPs for our reach figures and so forth. We had to go to this library, get these massive books from Nielsen, which had all the ratings of your TV shows and the demographic profiles and so forth. And I just said, God, this is just too much.
What are the major responsibilities of a media planner?
You're supposed to drive strategy in which advertising vehicles to use to drive reach and frequency and to get your message out. And again, in those days, it was print and TV. Mainly. There wasn't all the fragmentation of channels and data that we have today. And it's funny, I really thought it was too much data at the time, but we will fast forward, eventually to my current role where I'm knees deep in media data every day.
Got it. And so how did you come across Thunderbird, and why did you decide to go there?
So after I came back from my period abroad, it changes you when you spend some time living abroad more than just a vacation. You think differently. You've changed a lot. A lot of your friends stay the same. And so it was hard to kind of reintegrate a little bit because I had such a profound, experience at that time. And there was a roommate of a friend of mine, Jeff, and we had been commuting to New York together, and he had studied abroad in France. And so we instantly bonded. Is that Thunderbird mystique, and we'd been through this experience. We both changed. Our friends stayed the same and so forth. So we got together, and when I started working for this advertising agency, he had gone to Thunderbird. And after his first year, he called me up and he's like, "Jim, you got to come here. This is really the place you need to be." And so I said, "Okay," quit my job. It was the only school I applied to, and then we went and started from there.
Excellent. And how was your experience at Thunderbird? Do you have any favorite memories?
Yeah, too many to recount here. But Thunderbird, I would say, was really the first place that I really felt at home. Certainly after that going abroad experience, so many different cultures. Everyone has a different experience from a different place, but everyone thought the same. That's the whole Thunderbird mystique. And so I loved it. We lived in this just crappy house. I ended up starting a band with Jeff and then this other friend of ours, Rob, and a few other people. And we were playing drums. I was playing in a band called Foes and Me. We played Thursday nights in the pub, and that was a lot of fun in addition to all the other stuff. And, I talked to a lot of T-Birds around that time. Things have changed a lot at T-Bird, particularly moving, with ASU and into Phoenix. There's a lot of nostalgia for that Glendale campus, which was this old flight school, which I thought was super interesting because of, again, my grandfather was a fighter pilot. Life kind of finds a way to always come back.
Interesting. So after Thunderbird, you go into Czech Republic, or I don't know, was it Czechoslovakia at that time still?
It was still Czech Republic. It had just changed, I believe. It was 1994. At Thunderbird, I was studying international. European was my region, or Europe was my region. And through Thunderbird, they had an affiliation with a Czech management center. And this was an organization set up. And it was a combination of Czech teachers, I think some from the University of Philadelphia, and some Thunderbird people to set up Czech MBA, basically. And this business school where you had Czechs and Americans studying together for the first time, after things changed. It was a lot of fun. And they also had a division for entrepreneurship and company training. So I'd worked in that division, just as like an assistant director there to set up training programs for companies, but also to help Czech entrepreneurs, review their business plan for getting funding for USAID or other EU funding after the fall of communism, and it was right after privatization. So met a lot of characters there, learned a lot about business in different cultures and different places at that time.
Do you remember what was the kind of major difference from how you do business in Czech Republic versus US, or anything that kind of struck you at the beginning that I'm in so different place?
Yeah, I mean, it was early days. I was in a small town about an hour and a half outside of Prague. So it was really in a small town. And, if it rained, the phones didn't work. The things were landline. Mobile was just starting to come around that time. Just when you grow up in the US and go through college and Thunderbird and so forth, everything needs to be perfect. Your spell checked, your PowerPoint, you've got everything looks great. At that moment, during this period of change, there hadn't been that type of training or that expectation back, in those days. So people would show up, all disheveled or have, like spelling errors all over their presentation or whatever, because it's all new. And I soon learned that if we found somebody in that environment that had the perfect PowerPoint presentation, we knew they knew nothing about the local market. So it was really the kind of more raw entrepreneurs that we saw there that had the connections, had the kind of street knowledge about how to do business. So it was really, we used to you'd never accept a resume or a PowerPoint if it had spelling errors. There it's, to throw all that out the window, and it's really looking at for the person, for the experience, for to get a little bit deeper than just what you have on the surface.
Did you learn anything from those entrepreneurs?
Well, I just learned that you need to go look beyond the surface, the true value is never at the surface. I mean, today we're just bombarded with, Instagram, everyone has these perfect pictures and profiles and so forth. But once you kind of open the hood, that's where you see the real value. And that was really, I'd been more superficial, I would say, probably up until that time. And here it just really helped me to understand, to look a little bit beyond all the gloss and the fancy shiny bells and kind of open the hood and see what's there and then use that for determining the value.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then one day you're going to Prague to T-Bird Tuesday, and it changes your life.
Yeah, another. So this was it's interesting that the T-Bird connection has been very good to me. So I got this job through T-Bird because of the affiliation with the Czech Management Center. And my contract was up after a year, and then I was looking for the next opportunity. And so, like T-Birds do, when you're in a city around the world, you call the T-Bird Tuesday. And actually, the person that I'd called was a headhunter, and there were some other T-Birds in Geneva looking to interview for a communication position for Ray-Ban and Bausch & Lomb Vision Care products to open an office in Prague to handle communication for Central Eastern Europe. And this 2 weeks later, I got flown to Geneva, got the interview, got the job, and then opened a satellite office for Ray-Ban and Vision Care in Prague. So yeah, that changed my mind. I was almost ready to buy the plane ticket home after that 1 year. And this happened just by chance at the last minute, the last week of my contract. And it turned into, now it's been 30 years since I've been abroad.
Wow. So you are young MBA opening up an office in Czech Republic for the large company, a corporation. How did it go? How did you feel about? Did you have any doubts, any fears that you're going to be successful in that role? Walk me through that time.
Yeah, so I mean, I was the first of 3 employees there, and there was a regional manager who was, let's say, in charge of the commercial side of the business. So I just happened to be there for the first few months to set up the office, find the space, and so forth. It was all so exciting that I didn't even think whether it would be successful or not, because somebody wants to pay me to set up an office and cover 10, 15 countries in Europe. Like I was just on adrenaline and very excited to go through that. So
that's great.
It just yeah. But it was very, it was hard. At that time in Czech Republic was several years, maybe 3-4 years after the changes happened. There was a lot of, foreign investment and foreigners coming in. And you would have, it's hard to get, at the one hand, people would respect you for being from the States and having this knowledge and so forth. On the other hand, you were resented by people who were like, hey, you're taking our jobs. And so it was very interesting time where half the people would be just embracing, and I was really making an effort to learn Czech. And they're like, hey, come to my house for dinner. This is amazing. You're American. You're here and you want to learn. And then the other half the people were like, get out of our country. We've been screwed over by all these foreigners. And so it was really humbling. That was probably the first time I felt, discriminated against in a sense, at moments when I wouldn't even open my mouth, people would just say, get out of here or something. So it was very humbling experience. You definitely had to earn trust. And I think one of the things that I've learned, no matter where you are abroad, just there's like basics of being polite, being curious, saying please and thank you, trying to speak the language. All those things go so far. A lot of my American friends, when they come abroad, they're afraid, what do I do? How do I act? And so forth. And I think those just basic human values just get you so far.
Yeah. I totally agree. Just a few words in foreign language will take you really far.
Exactly.
Okay. So how much time did you spend at Bausch & Lomb, and maybe if you can talk about a few lessons how to do business in Eastern Europe? And what countries were you covering?
Yes, I was based in Prague, and it was we had Poland, Czech, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, all the former Yugoslavia,
So all the Eastern Bloc,
all the Balkans, yeah, anything except for the CIS countries. And so what I learned there with Vision Care, we were, what I found really interesting working in these emerging markets, particularly coming out of a business school, was you got real lessons. Like you learn in a book about first mover advantage, but until you spend time to build a market, let's say for contact lenses, and you train the market, you train ophthalmologists, you get everything set up, and then you run out of inventory because there's a supply problem, and then your competitor comes in and floods the market just after you've trained all the doctors. You you experience those things that you learn about in a book, but in a much more profound way, because it really impacts our business. So these were smaller businesses compared to, Western Europe and the States, of course. So there was more flexibility to be entrepreneurial, to take risks, to establish stuff. So, but I'm really happy and learned a lot from that type of experience. I think I learned more than I would have had I been in the US with an established company, that's just selling toilet paper and, just trying to optimize the media spend. Here you got involved in everything. It's distribution, partnerships, it's those first mover advantage, opportunities, and just really, really hands on the ground was really good.
That's great. And so from there, you're moving to Geneva, right?
I moved to Geneva. So with Bausch & Lomb, they had our headquarters for distributor operations was based out of Geneva. So we had done a pretty good job of training the market and getting the vision care business established there. We also had Ray-Ban sunglasses, but then that business was sold. The Ray-Ban was sold to another company, and I moved to Geneva, tried to replicate what I had done in Central Eastern Europe with these vision care institutes and so forth in the Middle East. So the Middle East region was Israel, Egypt, and all the Gulf states. Up until that point, I'd obviously seen a lot in Eastern Europe and Western Europe to that point. But it wasn't until I started traveling to the Middle East where I was like, wow, culturally, this is really different, in so many ways, just in terms of government, in terms of dress, in terms of attitudes and culture and business. So there's a lot of lessons there as well from a business perspective.
How it was different in terms of business from Eastern Europe, for example?
From a business perspective, we had been dealing with distributors who were used to selling Ray-Ban sunglasses, right? In the Middle East, a big market for that. So the vision care business was kind of always an add-on for them. But there was such a pride in having that business. I remember talking to our distributor in Saudi Arabia, who was really not developing the market. It was just, he'd been selling sunglasses. Vision care was just a side-on. But for us, we wanted to grow the market. And so there came to a point where I'm like, well, maybe this is not the right partnership, because we really need someone who's going to develop the market. And his answer was, how much do you need me to buy, to keep the business? Because for him to give up the distributorship there would have been shame or, pride issues in that. And so for him, it didn't matter whether he was making money or not making money. It was keeping that relationship. In another instance in Egypt, I remember, and I must have been like 25, 26 years old here. I was very naive still, but I was, it's the end of the quarter, and I was going down to Egypt to meet our distributor to sell. We had a quota to make for the end of the year to buy some solutions or something. And so I went there, and I was there for a couple of days, and we had invested in this Vision Care Institute. We had been training. We invested in advertising, and they had no inventory. And, I was afraid what would happen in Poland, like what would happen there in Egypt. So I'm like, you guys need to buy some inventory because we're about to go live with this campaign and so forth. And 3 days there, I could not convince these guys to buy anything. And I tried everything, the PowerPoint presentations, the graphs, the, investment, whatever. And I was ready to go home. I just had failed. I couldn't, get these guys to purchase these two, it's a container of contact lenses and so forth. But the last night, my boss had come down and we were having dinner with them, and the hospitality is always really great in these countries. So they took us for dinner. It was on one of these houseboats in the right alongside the Nile. And then at that time it was really dirty. There's like dead bodies and stuff floating out there. And I'm not a huge fish person, but this was it's a fish restaurant. And so he brought us there and just bought piles of fish. You choose it when you walk in. And so my boss just did not eat fish. He's like, Jim, you got to take one for the team. So he's just kind of cutting it up on his plate. For me, I'm like eating it, doing the best I can, and got down to this last fish on the table. It's all brown and disgusting. And they're like, oh, Mr. Jim, this is for you, the last one. You have to have it. And please. I'm like, no. And then something clicked in my head. It's like, okay, if I eat that fish, you'll buy not one, but 2 containers. And you do it right now. And they're like, great deal. Shook my hand. I ate the fish. I was sick for a few days, but they placed the order the next day and everything was good. So wow. All the fancy PowerPoint and presentation did not work, but the relationship and that, feeling that we could have that that discussion that was really more important than all the kind of traditional business stuff. So that was a big eye opener for me in that.
That's a totally different way of doing business. I would say eat the
Exactly.
fish.
Eat the
Okay.
fish. That's my big lesson.
Yeah, big lesson. Here you go. So what's next for you after Middle East?
After Middle East, I went to London. There are eventually that vision care business was merged with another company. They closed the office in Geneva. I moved to London. My fiance at the time was in London. She had moved from Prague to London. And I got a job with A.T. Kearney consultancy. It was during the dot-com boom. I had loved emerging markets, but I also wanted to get into tech. So this I felt was my opportunity. This was actually the first and only job I probably applied to out of like a newspaper ad or something. But I got this job as a consultant. It was great for a while, but then the dot-com crash happened, and this company was focused more on procurement and supply chain, not marketing and tech. So I got laid off, but during that process, I met a guy from INSEAD, actually, who played guitar. We met at one of these ice-breaking events, and we ended up starting a band called Jam Sandwich. And so for the next 6 months to a year, I ended up playing at pubs in London. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of us got laid off at that time because it was a big economy. So we had bankers and finance people that were in our bands, and we played for, at the Diageo happy hours in their pub that they have in London, pubs all over London, and at different corporate, Christmas gigs and stuff like that. So that was probably the best career that I had at that time. Playing drums was a lot of fun.
That's great. That's great. And but were you thinking of kind of touring and making it your professional career, the band, or was just
we made beer money? That was about it. But it was a lot of fun.
Got it. And so after your band experience, you going to work for Bombardier?
Yes. So
yes.
One of the, I guess my mentor, Michel, he's a guy I met in when I was in Geneva for Bausch & Lomb. He was French Canadian, moved to Canada, ended up working for Bombardier, and he came back to Europe a few years later and was setting up an office in Belgium to merge two different divisions in the powersport division. So there was a boats and outboard engine division, and there was a powersport like the personal watercraft, snowmobiles, and quad division. So that was in Belgium. So he asked me if I could come and lead marketing for that venture. So moved to Belgium with the family. First kid was born. And then we set up, we were working with distributors in Europe to sell these powersport products. So it was great. We did events in many different countries for journalists, distributors, consumer events and so forth. It was a great experience in the powersport industry.
Awesome.
And surprisingly, it was very similar to the job I had with the distributors in Eastern Europe for vision care, because you would have a real engineer on your products for the power sports as opposed to an ophthalmologist or a doctor on the vision care side. So there was a lot of similarities between these two industries, even though they seem so far apart.
Yeah. No, that's great. Let's talk about your current job, your current business, M-Sites, marketing tech, as you call it, and maybe we can start with quick explainer. What's a marketing tech?
So marketing technology is any type of software or tech that helps manage the marketing ecosystem. I mean, we're talking about all these, in the old days, in my first job in the media planning, it was offline, TV, print. Now the data is fragmented across so many channels and so many, different sources of information, not just social media, but just online advertising. And then you've got just all the digital products and content and everything is created. So this marketing tech landscape, it is just enormous. I think when we started back in 2010, there was maybe 100 MarTech companies, and there's the Googles and the Adobes and Facebooks and so forth. But now there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of point solutions that are doing, the bot on your website, that you your chat bot, or to collect your marketing data, or to have a dashboard, or to activate your media by activating it on the different ad tech platforms such as Facebook and Google and LinkedIn and so forth. So this marketing tech is all the technical side of marketing, and it has completely exploded in the last 20 years.
Got it. And how did you come across this opportunity?
So actually, this is, I think I hinted at it earlier, but I think around 2009-10, I was looking for another opportunity. I had contacted a good friend of mine from Syracuse, the guy that I used to be his RA, Scott, and he had a company called M-Sites. And one of the things I learned that as a marketing director for Bombardier was, all the different countries I used to work with, the data was everywhere. So every country had their own set of data. We spent probably 90% of our time just trying to reconcile whose data was right, get this in Excel, trying to make some sense of the market, the share to drive our strategy. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And my friend had started this company, M-Sites, that did exactly that, but more in the media space. So we just started talking, and one thing led to another, and he had an opportunity to expand his business in Europe. He's like, what should I do? And I said, well, hey, I'll open an office for you. He's like, where? And I'm like, Switzerland. Let's do it here. It's great central location, easy to do business. And so that started 15 years ago, and I opened an office for him. And then
how was your ride over the last 15 years?
It's been great. We're a small founder-led, self-funded company competing in this like massive MarTech space against these monsters, all these massively huge companies. So it is a challenge for us, obviously. But we've done a few things I think really well. And maybe just to take a step back, what we do is we help clients get their data decision ready every day. So we are collecting and connecting to all these different MarTech sources, ad tech sources, bringing data into a central location to really drive to create a data asset that they use for making decisions. And when we talk about decisions, it's around media data. So media is probably the last frontier of companies, of these line items that are super huge, hundreds of millions of dollars spent on media with very little governance. So we help companies to really understand what's happening with this media spend, where it's going, where it's not working, doing this day in and day out, kind of in an always on capacity so that they can make smarter decisions, they can save money, they can redeploy assets and so forth. So that's the space that we play in.
So if I run a small business and I have Google PPC AdWords, I have Facebook spend, I have Instagram, I pay for LinkedIn marketing, how can you help a small business owner to make decisions on better and more efficient marketing spend?
It really depends. We work to help clients with their KPI framework to understand what is important for them, what do they need to understand to make decisions. And really each brand, each company is in a different life cycle, in different stage of maturity and so forth. With a small business, we work usually with large enterprise companies like SAP, HPE.
Okay.
We've worked with Samsung in the past, JDE Peet's Coffee. But the principle is the same. All that data across Facebook, Pinterest, Google, Adobe, it's all fragmented. And so we bring it together, structure it, organize it so that you can see what's happening across channels. You can see which creative is working well and which media drives better efficiency and so forth. And then we measure that against the KPIs that the clients are looking for. And essentially, we build a data asset for them that they can use for reporting, for auditing of media, for market mix modeling, or for any of these different use cases. And it drives efficiency in terms of it's all automated, it's cleansed, it's organized and structured. And now we've taken more from a data reporting collection operations perspective, and because that data is so good, we're starting to bring in now the next generation of AI-driven media analytics. So that's really the direction that we're headed at the moment.
Speaking about AI, how do you think it will impact the whole marketing approach, marketing strategy for corporations and small businesses as well going forward? And are you seeing any major shifts already happening in the market?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, AI is all over the place. It's all people can talk about, So it is a buzzword. For us, we need to be in the game or we're not going to be in the game any longer. So it's definitely transforming even small companies that you need to embrace this. In terms of the output and the quality, really depends on how you're using it. I think there's a lot of AI initiatives, which everyone is looking at. Probably 75% have failed at this point. But people are learning and the technology is getting better. There is a different, I would say, areas that you can use AI. So there's a lot of content generation, automated content generation. I've seen, horror stories of that going wrong, but it can also save time from a production perspective. Again, you need smart people to make AI work. I don't think it's going to completely work on its own. And the advantage we have is that our data is clean, organized, and structured. You need that as the foundation of driving any AI initiative. So we've done already the kind of data onboarding piece to let these large language models run on the data. And it's interesting. You have now an analyst that's always on, never complains, answers you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is fundamentally changing the way we're going to drive analytics and support our clients.
Got it. How do you personally use AI in your everyday life? Do you have any interesting use cases you want to share?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do use ChatGPT a lot just to ask questions and maybe to refine something that I've thought about. My kids, interestingly enough, are not jumping on the AI bandwagon. They're both very creative, hands-driven kids. So they are skeptical because it's too easy. And I've seen professionals that I know that are now 100% dependent upon ChatGPT. Like they can't give you an answer without running it through ChatGPT. So I'm exploring, of course, because it's part of our doing a lot within our platform on the data side. I just am naturally curious for how this is working. So I'm just trying to use everything that I can get my hands on. I do feel, that it can be so powerful if you have the right human and AI component together driving it. If you rely entirely on AI, I don't think you'll get what you want. And I think it's very dangerous to if you use it to drive efficiency, to help you do tasks that you don't need, great, that are not necessarily value add. But if you use it for thinking and coming up with ideas and so forth, it can definitely do a lot. But I think there's a danger that you start to lose your cognitive ability to think on your own. So it's a slippery slope. So need to be careful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing the lessons with me prior to this conversation. And one of the lessons that I wanted to discuss with you is don't fear uncertainty or change. If you can expand a little bit on that lesson that you learned throughout your career and living in Europe, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, from the first time on the plane going to a new country without knowing anyone, when I did the semester abroad, none of my friends wanted to go. They all wanted to stay home for the frat parties and so forth. But I said, okay, I'm going to go. And that was, there's a lot of fear there. Every change that I've made, there's always a sense of fear to try something new, to get out of what you're used to. I've always landed on my feet better than where I was previously. So change is going to happen. It's really, I don't think you can avoid it. So it's better to embrace it. And it's tough. You need to believe that it's going to work out in the end. From my experience, whether it's moving to different countries, whether it's changing jobs, being laid off, laying off people, things change here and there. It's always worked out better eventually. It doesn't mean it's not hard, doesn't mean it's not scary at different times, but I think change is there and it's what keeps you going. For me, learning new things all the time is really important. So if I'm not learning, then I will want to change.
What are you learning today? Or
Today,
what would you like to learn?
But two things. One, I would say, obviously, the AI and what we're applying in our business is super cool. And there's always in MarTech, it's just evolving so quickly. There's always something new. And we work with great enterprise clients that are trying new things. So they push us and so forth. So that's great. But, I'm getting a bit older. And so I'm learning a lot more about wellness and longevity and how do I make sure that I continue to do all the things that I want to do outside of work, hiking and skiing and doing all that stuff? And there's so many advances in health and how we think of health and functional medicine and different things that have like completely revolutionizing the world. They're not mainstream yet because of all regulations and so forth, but learning a lot about how to take care of my mind and my body. This is really really critical for me to kind of go to the next phase of my life.
Yeah, excellent. And so maybe we can talk about your other hobby, which is photography. And you shared this great quote from Aaron Rose: "In the right light at the right time, everything is extraordinary." Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that different people or different, moments happen where it's exactly the same situation. But depending how you look at it and when you look at it, it can mean something totally different. It can be amazing or it can be, look terrible. So it's part of the good vibes only, When you have a situation, you can look at the negative side or you can look at the good side. So I think it's important that everything has its moment and you just need to find it. So in photography, it's all about light and the situation and so forth. So I always have my camera with me. I have a creative streak in me that I haven't wanted to lose. So I've been doing a lot of just personal photography around. And this quote just struck with me because really at those moments, and you don't know when they're going to happen, but at the right moment, right light, then all of a sudden this picture is fantastic. So I think it's a lesson you can apply to life as well. And also to realize that there are, kind of these two sides of the coin. There are going to be moments where the clouds are passing and things are not great, but then they open up and everything is fantastic. So it's good to keep that always in mind.
Yeah, no, that's a great quote. I totally agree with you. I think it's a good place to wrap up, and I have a few quick questions before start with what advice would you give to a 20-year-old self?
Oof. My 20-year-old self, I would say trust my gut and instinct. I think early on I took a more conservative approach to career and so forth, and eventually found my calling, with this international and Thunderbird and so forth. So always trust your gut. I think it's always right. That would be one thing.
Excellent.
For sure.
Do you have a message to the whole Thunderbird community, students and alumni?
Thunderbird, 2 or 3 life-changing moments in my career have happened because of Thunderbird. So I'm very grateful and thankful for that. I think the network is really so valuable. I mean, the Thunderbird network is amazing because it just spans, so many cultures, and that Thunderbird mystique is what binds us all together. So keep the network, explore, be curious, and enjoy. There's so much that life has to offer. And maybe the last one there is that, I always had a kind of a North Star where I wanted to go in this direction. But life brings you different things at different times and you don't know when. So be open to take those opportunities. Like if I didn't call that Thunderbird friend who told me about the job with Bal Shalom, I never would have done that, or I could have ignored it, but I took that opportunity. I had not planned on that at ever. I wasn't looking to go to that company or to stay here at that moment. So I think life brings you opportunities and it's up to you to take those and capitalize on them and make the most of it.
Yeah, that's great. And what's your next travel destination?
Likely Cancun. We have a company summit scheduled in January for Cancun. So our team, we have actually a T-Bird also is our CTO. He did a executive education. Is based in Monterey, and our development team is in Monterey. And then we've got people in Europe, US, and Singapore. And every year or every other year, we get together in Cancun to talk about business strategy, where we're going next, and so forth. So that's the next big.
Great place to be in January.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. Lots of great lessons, great advice. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex. Really appreciate it. Take care.